the last lesson of the entire unit, we're going to be looking at some more statistics, and we're going to be finding what is called the mean, the variance, and the standard deviation. You will need a calculator for these, so you will be allowed to use a calculator. Let's give some definitions first. In statistics, we're always working with data. Data is a set of values or scores, but we need to make sure that we refer to them as data. Next is the mean, which you guys should know. It's the average of all the data scores. And then this term should be new. Variance tells you how spread out the scores are. So are all of the scores clustered really close together so they're more consistent? Are all of the scores really, really spread out? And that variance number is going to tell you how spread out they are. So we want to find the variance. Make sure you write down all of the steps. You might need to pause the video so that everybody can get them all written down before we move on to an example. But here's what you're going to do. Step 1, you are going to find the mean of the scores. Then for each score in the data, you are going to subtract the score and the mean. So you're going to subtract the score from the mean for each set of data. Then you are going to square each one of the subtracted differences from step 2. So the order that you subtract really doesn't matter because you're going to end up squaring them anyway, which always makes it positive. And then the last thing you're going to do is find the mean or the average of all of the squares, and that is going to be your variance. So make sure everybody gets all of these written down. Let's do example 1. So I wrote all the steps out again for you, so make sure you write them down. Example 1, we are going to find the variance of this set of data, 4, 7, 3, 2. So step 1, we're going to find the average. Remember, the average or the mean, you take each one of your data sets and add them together. So 4 plus 7 plus 3 plus 2. And then we divide by how many we get. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're going to divide by 4. 4 plus 7 gives me 11, plus 3 is 14, plus 2 is 16, divided by 4, which equals 4. So my mean is 4. Step 2, we are going to take each score or each piece of data and subtract it from the average. So my first one is going to be 4. So let's do 4 minus 4, which equals 0. Then we have 7 minus 4, which equals 3. Then 3 minus 4, which is negative 1. And 2 minus 4, which is negative 2. So now we're going to take each of these answers that we get, so each of the differences, and step 2 is we're going to we're going to square them. So we're going to take each of our differences from here and we're going to square them. So we have 0 squared, which comes out to 0. 3 squared, which is 9. Make sure you put these in parentheses because negative 1 squared gives me positive 1 and negative 2 squared gives me positive 4. So our squares should always come out to be positive no matter what. So then our last step is we're going to take each of these squares and we're going to take the average of all of those. Now the one thing I want you to be aware of, this 0 counts as a piece of data. So you have to put it in there and you have to count it. So this is going to be, let's call it our variance, equals 0 plus 9 plus 1 plus 4, and divide it all by 4 again. So 9 plus 1 plus 4 gives me 14, divided by 4. And then actually with statistics we like to put things in decimals. So my variance is going to be 14 divided by 4, which is 3.5. If you ever get a decimal that continues to go on, round to the nearest 2 decimals for me. But this one actually comes out to exactly 3.5. So let's then talk about standard deviation. So standard deviation is actually related to the variance. It is the average distance from the mean. So we took our variance, which tells us how spread apart the data is, and then the standard deviation tells us on average how far each piece of data is from the mean. So to find the standard deviation, we just take our variance and we square root it. So example 2, I want you to find the standard deviation of this set of data, 4732. This is actually the exact same set of data from example 1. So I'm just going to write that right here, from example 1. I'm not going to do all of the work again because I already gave you the variance. So the variance was equal to 3.5. So to find the standard deviation, we're just going to take the square root of 3.5. Now do this, so make sure you do it in the calculator. The square root of 3.5 comes out to approximately 1.87. So go to 2 decimal places for me. And that's how you find the standard deviation. So let's do one example where we put it all together. So example 3, this says 4. You and your friends have just measured the heights of your dogs. They are 32 inches, 34 inches, 30 inches, and 15 inches. I want you all to find the mean, the variance, and then the standard deviation. So let's do the mean first. The mean is just the average. So we have 32 plus 43 plus 30 plus 15, and there were 4 dogs, so we're going to divide the whole thing by 4. 32 plus 43 plus 30 plus 15 all comes out to 120 divided by 4, which comes out to 30. Now with the mean, it is an average of all of these measurements. So our measurements were in inches, so make sure that you write your mean in inches as well, 30 inches. And then what I did was I created a table for each of these that gives the steps of finding the variance, and then we'll do the standard deviation at the bottom. So you might want to pause the video so everybody can write this down. So we have each of our dogs, and then the first column is all of their heights. The second column would be their heights minus the mean, so that's step 2. Step 3 is to square the differences, and then our last step would be averaging those out. So pause the video so everybody can write this down, and let's fill it in. The height of dog 1 was 32. The height of dog 2 was 43. Dog 3 was 30 inches, and dog 4 was 15 inches. So then our next step was to take each height and subtract it from the mean. So this is going to be 32 minus 30, which comes out to 2. The next one would be 43 minus 30, so that's a difference of 13. 30 minus 30, which is a difference of 0, and 15 minus 30, which is a difference of negative 15. So then our step 3 was to square all of those. So this is 2 squared, which comes out to 4. 13 squared, which is 169. 0 squared, which is 0. And then negative 15 squared, which is positive 225. And our last step is to take the average of all of these. So that's 4 plus 169 plus 0 plus 225 divided by 4. When you do that on your calculator, it all comes out to 99.5. So our variance is 99.5. Because variance is a measure of how spread apart the data is, it's not by inches or anything, so you just leave it as that decimal. And then the last part wanted us to find the standard deviation. So to find the standard deviation, we square root the variance. So that's the square root of 99.5. Which, if you put it in your calculator, comes out to 9.97. So that is going to be our standard deviation, 9.97. If the question ever asks you to round to the nearest whole number, remember we would start at 9 and look over. Because that rounds up, it could also be approximately 10. I would like 2 decimal places though. And that's mean, standard deviation, and variance. So you guys have homework for this one as well, worksheet 4. And then you also have quiz 1 today. On your quiz, you can use your notes and any of your homework assignments, but you cannot share. But do please make sure that you are using your notes to help you on this stuff. And then you can start your homework after you are done with the quiz, which are the worksheet from the Green Spiral book.